Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Alex. I'm a new co-host for CPS The Horror Stories. So I'm just gonna do a introduction, I guess, and just kind of talk a little bit about my story, which I did a video with Cynthia a little while back. So, I mean, if anybody wants to watch that, you can go ahead and, go back through the videos and just find my face and it'll pop up somewhere, I'm sure. So, yeah. So I am from Indiana, small town. It's nothing too exciting here. I dealt with CPS back in 2020. I had my kids removed, and I believe, sorry, something there. So sorry. Um, anyway, so back in 2020, I had my last kid, my little girl. I have three kids. One's about to be 11. I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. So my case started after I gave birth to my daughter back in 2020. Um, Pretty much, I guess, an interesting thing is the new thing. If everybody's been watching all the new guests with Mr. Davis and Miss G, I'm trying to think. I don't want to mess up his name. Mr. Okori, I believe. They've been talking about the drug screens and the issues with those, and even just the difference between the types of drugs that show up. Like for meth, it shows up, it should show up D-methamphetamine if it's a street drug. Well, if it's from something else, like he mentioned in the video, from over-the-counter stuff or, prescribed medication things, then it will show up as L-methamphetamine. Well, that is what happened to me. I had a drug screen, now not a drug test, like he says there is a difference. And it came up L-methamphetamine. Well, apparently my OB didn't care to investigate any farther. He just thought that was enough to turn me in to CPS, and he waited until I had my child to do so. He also, I just lost my train of thought. They also made us stay at the hospital for 2 extra days because they were waiting to see if my daughter would be born with drugs in her system, which of course she wasn't. And I didn't have any drugs in my system because I was not a drug user. But, they just assumed that for whatever reason. So it was pretty traumatic to have my kids taken from me. Thankfully, they were just at my mom's, which was just a few miles away, but it was still, for any parent, it's terrible to have your newborn child taken away from you after just a couple days of, giving birth. One of the other issues that we had dealt with was that I had tried to tell the DCS worker that, my drug test, I believe, after I got the medical records, that the positive drug screen, not drug test, I guess I probably missaid that a second ago, but the positive drug screen that I had could have been due to my inhaler, because my OB had said that, the date on the paperwork said October 14th, and that was the day we were moving out of my mom's to our apartment, and I had used an inhaler that day. And I went to the doctor for my checkup and supposedly tested positive for an L-methamphetamine drug. Well, my OB never told me about it until January, that, so many months later. And so that was another issue, but I had told the CPS worker that, and she let it go for the longest time. So fast forward, after all this traumatic crap went on forever, it seemed like, which we actually had an open case for like 8 months altogether. But my kids were taken in April after my daughter was born. And then in June, after I had gotten the social worker had given us a book of all their guidelines and, things like that. And for the longest time, I didn't look at it because I was like, well, I don't need to, I'm sure there's nothing in here that's important. Well, I decided to start looking through it one day while kids are sleeping. And it said in this book that if you have a false positive drug test or a positive drug test for a prescription medication, then they have no grounds to remove your children. So I took a picture of this and I sent it to her, and I was like, so what does this mean? Because I've tried asking you about the issue with my inhaler, and she never really said, yeah, you're right, or, I shouldn't have taken your kids because that's what it says. I just didn't hear from her until like that next week. And then she had called and said the kids could come home and that we would get unsupervised visits. And then so far down the road, we eventually got our case closed. So I just thought that in itself was so weird that, she put it off for so long, and, everybody ignored me for the longest time. And this is something else I wanted to bring up since Mr. Davis and Miss G and, Darren had Mr. O'Corey on the show. Like, it blew my mind. I'm sure, like a lot of you, just to hear all the stuff about the drug screen and the drug testing and how inaccurate it was. Because at the time of my case, I had told, so many people, I kept vouching for myself, and I had some people vouch for me and some people didn't, that I wasn't using drugs. And now, with all this coming to light that Mr. O'Corey was talking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I was trying to tell people like years ago. Like, there is a difference in the drugs that come up on a test or a screen, and they should be looked into, and they're not. And the other sad thing was, like I said, with my case, my OB didn't even tell me about it. So I didn't even know, to even ask for a retest or anything. And it's obviously it was just so unfair, because that none of it should have happened where I had my kids taken. And I feel it's very unprofessional for an OB to not tell a pregnant mother, hey, you tested positive for drugs. Like, first of all, I mean, supposedly, whether I did or didn't, I mean, I would want to know how something got into my system and be concerned. And, I'd be concerned for the welfare of my unborn child. So how you cannot tell somebody that is very odd to me. So yeah, there was just so much with our case. And looking back now, I wish that we would have taken it to trial. But of course, like most people, you get DCS gets involved out of nowhere, and then they rip your kids away from you, and you've never experienced this before, and you just don't know what to do. Like, you don't know where to go. You don't know whose advice to take or not take. Well, our public defender, state attorney, had told us, if you take it to trial, then you could, lose your parental rights if you lose. So at that time, we were like freaked out. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want to lose our kids forever. So we were like, okay, well, we won't then. But looking back now, I wish that I would have, because I believe if we would have went to trial, I could have cross-examined, the hospital, their testing quality, the test itself, why they didn't retest me, all that stuff. And I personally believe we would have won, and the case would have closed, instantly, as soon as they would have realized what was going on, because they really had no basis to take my kids from me. So I really hope, like, I was so excited, like my heart dropped when I saw the video with Mr. Davis, Miss G, and Darren, and Mr. O'Corey about the difference of the drug testing and the drug screens. And like, I've heard them say on even some recent videos that, that information should help a lot of people. And even from my experience, like, personally, if anybody has to take a drug screen or test, especially a mother that's pregnant or about to give birth or has given birth, ask for a retest. Ask for it to be sent to a lab, because then if it comes back different, they have to prove that whether or not you had drugs in your system. And if you didn't, then they should have no reason to take your kids. If there's no abuse, there's no neglect, nothing like that, then they shouldn't be in your life trying to steal your kids from you. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And in my state, I'm not real sure how bad it is, how often it happens, but I'm hoping to find out. So with doing the show, and joining everybody, hopefully I can do some more research into this and see what I can find out. And personally, am hoping to start making some calls to like the departments, maybe even DCS itself. I don't know yet. I haven't decided, but I would like to, get a hold of people and be like, hey, just bring attention to this. Like, it's not right. You can't just take somebody's kids based off a faulty drug screen. That's not even, that doesn't even really prove whether or not you were doing anything. Because, like other people say, there can be stuff transmitted to you through money, touching a picnic table outside, anything, depending on where you live, and how bad things are. You never know what people are doing outside or anywhere. So, I mean, there definitely needs to be more investigations into things like that, because it is so unfair for people to have their children ripped away from them, especially, like I said, babies. Like, my daughter was a newborn. She was 8 days old when they took her. And it was just, I truly didn't think anything like that could ever happen, especially to me. Like, I said, my son's about to be 11, and never when I had him or my middle son did I think I would ever be dealing with CPS. I mean, we've always been a great family. I've always taken care of my kids. I've never even had any false reports or, crappy anonymous reports or anything like that. Never in my life. Never. And, like me, depending on people, your family would be able to tell if something was wrong, if you're close to your family. And like I told so many people, like, my mom was around so much, and she would stop to see me almost every day, before I had my daughter. So it's like if something was going on, she would have known, because she knows me, mom instincts. So, I mean, it's like if I was doing something wrong, my mom, first of all, would have stepped in, and there wouldn't have been, any reason to call DCS, because she would have been like, hey, you need to straighten up or I'm going to do something about it. But that was never the case, never the case. And I have so many people that say, you're so great with your kids and you always have your kids. I'm like, yeah, I'm never away from them. Like, so I understand for people that have had their kids taken away from them, and it's outraged me, and I love watching the videos that Mr. Davis, Miss G, and everybody else does, because it's so informative. And just like them, the world, not just our country, but the world needs to know what is going on, because kids are getting kidnapped, like they said, for profit. And it's insane. It's not right. Just like them and everybody else, I don't understand why, you've got to be special kind of crazy or just not have a heart to do that to people, especially when they do not deserve it. And there are plenty of people where they do deserve it, where it does need to happen, and they just let it go, and it's not a big deal until something serious happens, like a child dies or, is assaulted so bad to where they're almost dead. And it's like, you could be spending resources and money on reunifying families and, caring for kids that need it. Like, all these people want is money. We all know that. And it's insane. So hopefully after, so long and so much attention, we can make some changes, because this stuff needs to stop. It's not right. It's really not. And it's so hard to even, sometimes some people come on with their stories with Miss G or Miss Davis and Cynthia, and I'm just like blown away by how much, the terrible things that happen to other people and their kids. Like, I can imagine. I thought what I went through was, horrific, and it was traumatizing. But at the same time, it's like, I know there's other cases that are so much worse, and I don't know how people do it, how people fight. Whoever does, you all are amazing, because if your kids have been hurt, I don't know how you keep it together. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't. There's no way. I could barely keep myself together when my kids were just, one little town away. I mean, it affected me so much. It put me into a depression, which was hard to deal with, especially after having a newborn, because you're already at risk for postpartum. So then you have CPS that comes in and is taking your kid away from you. And then they, like everybody says, they expect you not to fight, not to do anything. They just want you to sit back and do what they want. And we weren't like that. We fought, but we wish there was things we should have done differently. But like I said, we didn't know about it at the time. I didn't know that I could have a trial and, probably win it. And that's something that, I still deal with now to this day, is one of those things where you wish you could go back and do it differently, but you can't. So you just move forward. So, I mean, it's just, at least would be amazing to help people, get some information out there on what your rights are and what you can do, because these public defenders and everybody else in DCS just give you a scare tactic. Oh, well, if you don't do this and you don't do that, then I can terminate your rights or whatever. And then people are like, okay, well, I don't have the money to get a lawyer to fight them. But at the same time, like in my case, I had so much proof and so much evidence where if I would have went to trial, I guarantee I would have won. So for people, if you have very concrete evidence and you're early on in your case, I believe you should just take it to trial, because, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I mean, of course, every case is different, but I think overall, even with the drug screen and drug testing, like, fight that. If you know that you are not doing anything, don't let people, tear you down and degrade you to like there's no way to fight it, because there is. There definitely is. I mean, you can ask for, like I said, most people will ask for a retest. Unfortunately, I didn't get that chance. And then, even just the test itself, be like, hey, how accurate is this test? Because if it's not very accurate, I'm going to go somewhere else and get it done, because I want to make sure. And then, you just don't want them to have anything they can, use against you that's not true, because there were so many things. I mean, just like, most people that come on the show and tell their stories, there's always lies. And yeah, you can't always go back and change it, but, even apart from the lies, don't stop fighting, because at some point somebody's gonna believe you, whether it's just, in your personal life or not. And thankfully, during the time that I was dealing with CPS, I had a pretty good support system. I really did. Without certain people in my life, I don't know if I would have made it through it, because, like we all say, it's traumatizing. It's horrific. You don't, especially for parents that have never dealt with it before, like me and my fiance, we're with our kids all the time, even when we just had one kid. Like, yeah, sometimes he would go stay at grandma's on the weekends, but most of the time we didn't even do that. It was like, if you want to come see him, come hang out at the house. Like, he's our little one. We don't want him going nowhere, just because, he's our child, and we're so used to him being, excuse me, with us all the time. So, I mean, which isn't a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing to have breaks, for sure. But, which we did. We had breaks, but still, it's your kids. You can't imagine your life without them, especially when they're a part of you 24/7 and have been since the day they were born. I mean, like we all say, DCS workers don't understand that, especially if they don't have kids. Like, it's like, okay, but, if you don't understand that, imagine your dog just being ripped away from you or something, which still doesn't say much to the fact that it's your child that you carried for 9 months or however long, and then birthed that child. It's a whole different type of bond. And when you remove that, and strip that away from somebody, it breaks their soul. And it's nothing. It's, you can never come back from that, like everybody says. I mean, you can move on, but some people, like it's been said, don't actually get their kids back. They change so much because they go through so much that they're just not the same. And that's not right. I don't understand how, DCS people or social workers, whoever, anybody, or even doctors, reporting people for stuff that's not even concrete. Like, you understand that this child can be taken away and you just don't care. Like, it blows my mind. I mean, the world we live in is so sick. It's it's insane. I don't get it, but hopefully, like I said, I want to be able to help other people, especially in my state, just be informed of all the things that need to change, and what you can really do, because of course DCS tells people, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, actually you can. Like, also another thing within my case was the social worker had gotten my daughter's medical records without my permission, and I was supposed to sign a form for her to get those records, and I never did. Well, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, so I never signed the form, and I had actually asked my daughter's pediatrician, um, do they have to have a signed paper, a signed release form to get the medical records? And she was like, well, they don't if they have an open case. But if it's just during an investigation, then no. If it's an investigation, then they have to have a signed paper by the parent. So in my case, she was getting my daughter's medical records and health information without me signing it, because before they, removed my children, she told us, oh, it's just an investigation. So with us, it wasn't even an open case until they actually removed our children. And the day that she did, speaking of the medical records, um, I had my daughter on Wednesday. We were in the hospital till Friday. The day after I had her, so Thursday, the DCS worker was there, and she was just telling us all the stuff, and we were dumbfounded and terrified of what was going on. And then so yeah, it was just stressful, it was traumatic, it was scary, it was terrifying. So by the time Monday comes around, she had called my daughter's pediatrician to see if we had made it to her appointment. Well, I had wrote the day down wrong. I got the days mixed up. I thought I was supposed to go to her appointment on Tuesday, and it was actually Monday. Well, she knew, the social worker knew before I did, that we had missed her appointment. So that evening, because I missed her appointment and didn't answer the phone over the weekend, and I wouldn't let her come in my house over the weekend, she just went ahead and went to the courthouse and got a court order to remove my children. And then another thing, most parents know that when you have a newborn, when you have a baby, you have to make their first appointment within, the first week of them being born, just to make sure they're still healthy and everything's good. Well, I had 5 to 7 days to make the appointment, and not just to schedule the appointment, let me rephrase, just to schedule the appointment. So I didn't even, technically have to make that appointment that she went and turned into the courthouse that I missed. So they tried, they pushed it on me of prenatal neglect because I missed her appointment and this and that, and, just other things. And actually, when I did my interview with Cynthia, she had looked it up while we were talking about prenatal neglect, if it's against the law, and it's not. And this is in Indiana, mind you. So, the whole time we were dealing with this, I'm like thinking it's something serious, prenatal neglect, like, what does that even mean? And come to find out, like, really, that shouldn't have even been grounds to take my kids either, because in Indiana, if you don't want to go to the hospital while you're pregnant, you don't have to. So it really surprised me when Cynthia looked that up, and I don't know why, back at the time that it was going on, I didn't look it up. I might have, but, it was way after the fact, so I couldn't change it. But, yeah, so I think especially for pregnant women and especially for new mothers, it is very important to be informed about anything and everything that DCS could pull on you, because when it happens to somebody that's not a drug user, not an abuser, not a parent that would neglect somebody or neglect a child, they just pull stuff out of their hat, just make things up. Oh, well, you're neglecting your child by not going to doctor's appointments and this and that. And, you know, um, when in reality, you could have been making those appointments, but you didn't even get the chance because they come in and took your child because you mix up the days on which day it is. And it's just not right. So I really hope that with myself and everybody else on this show that we can, definitely, apart from other people, help mothers and new mothers, just be informed about everything, because you never know when they can come in and just do what they want. And, it's so important to fight against them and stop them from stealing anybody's kids. It's not just for ourselves. If other people hear about somebody else dealing with CPS, like, step in and help. At least give them information, because some people, I mean, it's hard telling what percent of the country in the world is uninformed about their rights as parents. I mean, you think you automatically have rights until DCS comes in and tells you you don't. So it's so important to know that, from a range of things, just from them coming into your house or wanting to talk to you or your children or, however, how to fight that. And, just stop it if it's not necessary. Because then, like I said, they'll just make up lies and anything else just to try to get your kids for money. And it needs to stop. It's just too much. There's too much of it going on in the world, and it's not right. And I, from experience, know how it feels to have your children ripped away from you, and it is the worst feeling in the world. Like, I personally thought nothing could hurt me more than when my grandma passed away years ago, until my kids were ripped away from me. And it was like there was just a huge hole put in my heart that I didn't think would ever be fixed until, I started getting informed and realizing, hey, I really did nothing wrong. I really did nothing wrong for that to happen. And it's so sickening. Like, everybody says that they just do it just for money, because that's not right. Like, children aren't for sale. They're not. They shouldn't be. It's not okay to just take kids away from people and be like, oh, well, we'll put you in this home and label you as this just so we can get more money from the state. Like, if you really need money that bad, maybe you should be in a different line of work where you're making more money. And the state needs to figure out, and the federal and everybody needs to figure out how to properly use money, taxpayer money at that, to keep families together. I mean, there's just so many things, that's wrong with all of this. So hopefully I can help, bring some information and light to all the things that go on. So, if anybody has any questions about my case, I'll answer. Or if anyone is in Indiana, maybe I can help, with some of that too. But really, it's just a matter of, everybody has Google at their fingertips, and yeah, you shouldn't believe everything you read on Google, but at the same time, sometimes depending on what you look for, there can be some really good information on there. I have found tons of information that I didn't even think I would find, and it just blows my mind to this day. Like, even the statistics of your state, like, look at that and see what, the adoption rates are, and removal rates, because all that stuff is public knowledge. It's public information. You can Google it. And I think it's so important for people to see that, because especially people that do have their kids taken for no reason, people are like, oh, well, there had to be a reason. You had to have done something wrong. No, I didn't, because you don't understand who these people are. And the numbers are just baffling, not just for individual states, but for the whole country. I mean, I can't imagine. I have yet to look up the statistics for the country, and I'm afraid to, but at the same time, like, I'm going to, because I want to know what the numbers are. So, there's just so much that we need to, just like anything else, you got to bring awareness to it, because people need to be aware so that way they can fight themselves, or hopefully help other people in their fight. Because sometimes, there are people that don't have somebody else to lean on, or somebody else that has experienced what they have. And sometimes it's just so important to have somebody understand what you're going through. Like, I had one person that I was really afraid when she found out what was going on with my case, that she would have a whole different opinion of me. And turned out she didn't. And she was a very great support system to me, and she still is. And I'm so thankful for that, because I had, like most people, probably I had much of my family turn against me and believe lies that were being told. So it's not just that I had my children ripped away from me, but it also drove a huge wedge between myself and family members that I was close with. And at the same time, it's like, if they want to believe that crap, then that's their fault. But things that were said to me, afterwards, it was just horrible. And depending, what DCS accuses you of, sometimes that's something anybody is going to remember you for. And it's like, I don't want to be known for that, because it's not true. So it's like, what do? Go the rest of your life defending yourself over some bullcrap lies? I mean, that takes a toll on you mentally. It's like, it changes your whole outlook on people and how they perceive you. I mean, even telling my story with Cynthia, I was really afraid that people would see it, and then, I would probably get messages from people and, things like that, and just get some backlash from it, but I never did. So I am so thankful for that. But in reality, I still did, personally, from friends, family, people who didn't even know me. Like, I had neighbors, talking about me, saying that, oh, they had their kids taken away from them for drug use and this and that. And it's like, no, I was never on drugs. Like, so it's just something, you have to keep fighting through it. I mean, no matter how far down the road you get in your life, it's something that unfortunately sticks with you. And we always say our kids are never the same, but we also aren't either as parents. I mean, it changes you in a way that you probably, like me, didn't even think was possible, or that would even be relevant to your life. So, all right, well, I think that's probably about all I have to say for tonight. So I am very looking forward to, doing more videos and bringing some information to people, and just talking with people. So hopefully, I'm going to also hopefully, find some guests from Indiana and see. I'd like to get in touch with some people to see what their cases were like, because I know Indiana's got its bad parts too, just like any other state. So hopefully, so sorry. Hopefully changes can be made with, so many different people in their states, and, just general in their lives, because nobody deserves the pain and the hurt that CPS brings with it. So, yeah. So with that being said, hopefully I'm excited to be on here and doing the lives with everybody. I'm sorry I'm nervous and all that, but hopefully I get better as time goes on. My voice is a little raspy today. My throat's a little bit dry, but yeah. So I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to do the next one, and hopefully share some more information with everybody that I've been learning about over the past even just few months. And just like me, I hope everybody else watches the videos with Mr. Davis and all of them, because there's so much information that they bring about that people need to know. So it's truly amazing what they do. And I'm excited to be part of the fight. So thank you, everybody who listened. And like I said, I apologize for all the raspiness, dry voice, and all that. But yeah, so hopefully everybody has a good night. Thank you.